Hello everyone, this is G and I'm back with another video. So as always, I hope everybody's doing well, and if you're not doing well, I hope that things improve. So I just saw this tweet in my timeline, and I just wanted to just hopefully be brief. We all know how that is with me. And just give a brief thoughts and brief response to this. So this tweet from Black Sage D, Sony still censors Japanese video games. Boy, what a name. Anyway, says if all your common knowledge of anime is Demon Slayer, Naruto, Inuyasha, Bleach, One Piece, Fate, Dragon Ball Z, Sailor Moon, Gundam, My Hero Academia, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Ghost in the Shell, then you're not an anime fan. Normies stay the F out of anime. And then the next tweet, because there were several, I'm not going to be showing them all, but the next tweet was, so it seems like a lot of idiots miss the point of this post. What I'm saying is that if that's the only shows you watch and nothing else, then that's a problem. The main reason I said this is because of this BS article about Kill La Kill. Now, I can't speak for the article that he linked because I'm not familiar with La La Kill La Kill, right? So I can't offer an opinion either way. I wouldn't be able to ascertain whether or not the article is being fair or not if I don't know anything about the anime. But I do know about the animes he's listed here. And I find it very interesting that he would say that if all your common knowledge of anime is these shows which um, debuted and were popular at different times in history, right? Demon Slayer, at least in my knowledge, is a bit more recent. Naruto is like the early, like late 1990s, early 2000s. It was very popular when I was in college, and I was in college in the mid two 2000s, like '05 to '07, that area, right? Same thing for Bleach, as is mentioned a little bit later. Inuyasha, I remember Inuyasha from my college days, right? I know it was around earlier in Japan, right? It's a very famous work by Rumiko Takahashi, if I remember her name correctly. One of the most famous and richest female mangaka and just mangaka in general in Japan. I think she's been doing manga. She's done different types, Ranma, Half, and all that. I think she's been doing manga since what, the 70s or the 80s? I know she's been around for a really long time, right? But for me, my exposure to that came with Adult Swim, so I was definitely, that would have been the early 2000s for me when I was in my late teens, going into my early 20s, and then my high school uh, experience, right? So interestingly enough, Inuyasha at that time was my one of my brother's favorite shows. I don't know if he still considers himself a fan now, but I know back then he was a huge fan of it. I personally never got into Inuyasha because the relationship dynamic between Kikyo and Inuyasha, and especially Inuyasha and Kagome, just annoyed the hell out of me. That whole, will they, won't they, um, uh, what's the term, Sundere, right? Type thing just irritated me. I was just like, look, Yusuke Keiko did it better. But that's just me. That's just me, right? But then he mentions Bleach again. That was more my college years for me. Same way with One Piece. And I think One Piece has been going on since the mid 1990s at least, right? Then he says Fate. Not too familiar with that one, I can't say. But DBZ's been around since I've been alive, right? That was what, like the mid 80s, 84, 85. So it's about as old as I am. And I'm 36. So just turned 36 last month. So that's been around since I've been alive, and it's still going strong after all these years, right? Then you have Sailor Moon. That's what, the mid 1990s, or early mid, around the time Yu Yu Hakusho first came out. I remember as a little kid going to school. This was like elementary school, so like 5, 6 years old. I had to get up early in the morning. I would shower, get out the shower, get dressed, and that's as I was getting dressed, Sailor Moon would be coming on. It was like channel 11, I think it was. Be like Dragon Ball, and then the show after that would be Sailor Moon, and then I still remember at least part of the theme song to this day, right? Jesus. Now, of course, that I've said that I have to let me think of it. Uh, Winning love by daylight. Da-da-da-da-da-da. Of course, you know when I cannot recall it on command, but it's definitely one of those shows that like the theme starts playing, you just start singing along, all the memories come back. Right, then you have Gundam, which I think is what, 80s, 90s. I didn't watch it too much, I can't say. My Hero Academia is a bit more recent. Yu-Gi-Oh is peak 1990s for me. I remember my brother watching that show all the time. Ghost in the Shell is 1990s, and then um, you had Standalone Complex. I think in like 2000, so it's like that time period, right? So obviously, all of these shows came out at different times, right? Some are the 90s, some are the 80s. A lot of them have sort of run the gamut across the years because they've become these iconic uh, franchises that sort of um, uh, what's what I'm looking for? I guess pass the test of time and in a sense exist outside of time in a way because they've been around for so long now, right? But he's saying here that if your common knowledge is these particular anime, right, then you're not an anime fan. And this type of gatekeeping, which it is, it's gatekeeping, it's elitism, and I detest elitism. I really do. Because elitism closes doors, right, of communication. Now, I want to be clear. I want to be clear. I do believe that there is some, um, what's the word I'm looking for? Gatekeeping that needs to be done for any sort of geek fandom because if you don't, then you get what we currently have, right? Which is dishonest people such as Anita Sarkeesian when it comes to video games, Christina Ariel, and Justina Ireland, and many others when it comes to Star Wars and other different types of things, people who don't have good intentions for the work coming in and basically killing it from the inside out and pushing the original OG fans like myself or you or anyone else out of it, right? You wouldn't have this geek culture war that's going on and has been going on for several years now if we had been a bit more discerning about the intentions of certain people's coming in, right? Especially when they start voicing their complaints about supposed sexism or racism and things like that, right? But this is not what this tweet or the other tweets that he made are talking about. These are talking about simply being fans of certain shows and those shows sort of being your knowledge base of what anime is, right? And to this I say, well then, sir, how much anime does a person have to watch? How knowledgeable do they have to be a fan in your eyes, right? How does one meet your completely subjective, arbitrary standard? Do you have to be a connoisseur of anime from the 80s or the 90s? Do you have to be uber knowledgeable about Lone Wolf and Cub or Astro Boy? Can you know something a bit more recent, like, say, Legend of the Shield Hero? Right? Do you have to read very dark M-rated stuff like, say, Berserk? Right? What's the standard here? What's the standard here, Mr. Gatekeeper? What do I have to do, right, to prove that I am a fan, right? Do I have to name famous mangaka, right? Do I have to name famous scenes? Do I have to, only watch a show in the right? In the subtitles, no dub, no dub, right? Not a real fan. If you pray tell like the dub because you like the voices and the actors and it's in the language you understand, right? You can't have that, right? That's unacceptable, right? How many anime does a person have to watch? 50, 100? Do you have to move to Japan and learn the language and live there for several years and create a manga and an anime of your own before you are fan enough for Mr. Black Sage D, Sony still censors Japanese video games? What do I have to do to prove myself to you? Right? Now, of course, I'm being sarcastic and facetious. Sarcastic. You. I'm being sarcastic here, but for a good reason. Because again, who sets the damned phone? Who sets the standard, right? Who sets it? Me? Him? Someone else? Can you only be a fan of Japanese anime and manga if you yourself are Japanese? Am I banned? Is he banned because we're not native Japanese people or not even Japanese Americans? You see, if you take his approach, you could put any false barrier up and say, you must be this tall to ride, right? You must be this knowledgeable. You must do this, that, and the other to meet my standard. Well, here's my standard for if you're a fan of something. Do you enjoy it? Do you like it? Do you spend at least some time and money on it? Does it give you some positive feedback? Do you feel better after having engaged with it? Then you're a fan, right? Now, here's the thing, as I'm going to show here, right? As you see, I said here, to a point, yes, but what you are doing, he was talking about gatekeeping. There was a tweet, which is not shown here, unfortunately. I should have shown that tweet. I apologize. But it says here, to a point, yes, but what you are doing is elitism. It doesn't help the fandom grow. And indeed, it doesn't. How does a fandom grow if you have people like this man saying, these are the checks, right? These are the checkpoints you have to pass to be a real anime fan, right? And here's my other response. This is a, what do they call it on Twitter? A quote tweet? Anyway, I wrote, this is gatekeeping. But I should have wrote was, this is gatekeeping via elitism, right? But this is gatekeeping. These shows helped a lot of manga anime fans, myself included, get into the hobby. Not everyone has the same level of knowledge and or investment, and that's okay. If it weren't for DBZ and Sailor Moon, I never would have found Gits, Ghost in the Shell, Full Metal Alchemist, Trigun, Lupin as in Lupin the Third, Yu Yu Hakusho, etc. Right? I discovered a lot of shows in my teenage years and in my college years because of the mainstream exposure of these type of shows and other shows such as the ones that were shown on Cartoon Network, such as the anime version of Rurouni Kenshin, right? I discovered the manga through that. I discovered the OVAs, right? Which are like original movies, right? For that, I discovered, and as much, dear God, as much as it hurts me to have to give them any credit in this day and age because of how they treated Vic Mignogna, I have to give early 2000s Funimation a lot of credit because they were dubbing a lot of these shows. They did an amazing dub, excuse me, of Yu Yu Hakusho. It still holds up to this day. And they were a very young company then. And if it hadn't been for them doing so many English dubs of shows, right, I wouldn't have discovered Yu Yu Hakusho or numerous other anime and manga. When it comes to older, more serious works, I have to give a lot of credit to Adult Swim, right? Because that was how I discovered Lupin the Third. That's how I discovered Trinity Blood, Trigun. What else was there? Cowboy Bebop, right? Which is a classic, right? And then, of course, there were, the Saturday morning cartoon blocks that would show Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, right? or the weekday cartoon blocks that were so popular back in the 80s and 90s, right? Even going all the way back to the 80s, stuff like, here comes Speed Racer, right? I didn't particularly take the Speed Racer, but I did see a few episodes, and that's because it did have a level of mainstream exposure. And now, because anime has been around for so long and become more and more mainstream in America, you get a lot more shows, right, that either weren't really well known back when they first debuted, or you get newer shows, for example, Legend of the Shield Hero, My Hero Academia, Demon Slayer, and many others. Right? So this mainstream exposure does help people discover other works. And, right, but this elitism doesn't help anybody, whether it be the elitist themselves, in this case Black Sage D, or the fan, grow. Right? And this can happen in anything. This can happen in music, movies, TV, video games, comics, or whatever. Right? This type of mindset does not help expose anyone to anything new. It's just going to cause people who are fans of these works that he listed to go, I'm just going to stay here then. I'm not going to look for anything else. Look at what he said. I'm not a real anime fan because I'm a fan of a bunch of 90s, mostly 90s and 2000s anime. That helps absolutely no one. Especially since, regardless of how long the work has been around, you need fans. You need eyeballs on the work to keep it going. This stuff ain't free. People might sail the high seas because they can't or don't want to spend money on it for various reasons. But this work, whether it be the original creation in Japan, or the translation and localization work in America or other countries, of course, it's not just the U.S., right? This stuff costs money. It is not free. They need people who are willing to spend that money. And here you are basically pushing people away with this type of elitist and, in my opinion, immature attitude. Believe it or not, it does remind me a bit of myself when I was about 6 or 7, right? And like any annoying big sister, I would tease my brother about his choice of video games, right? Ha ha, only babies like Sonic. Sonic is damn near as old as I am now. What did I know, right? There's nothing wrong with liking these shows. There's nothing wrong with being a new fan, a newbie or a normie or a casual fan, right? You need those too. The only issue I take with newer fans or more casual fans is when they try to assert, or more likely, right? Someone tries to assert for them or speak for them and saying, "Well, they're just as much a fan as you are." Um, no. Now, I want to be clear. Being a casual, being a normie is not bad. But it is not the same as, say, someone like myself who has been a big fan of anime, manga, video games, professional wrestling, sports, and various things for well over a decade. Right? Depending on what we're talking about, it can literally go back um, years and years and years. Like with video games, I started gaming at 4 years old, playing the Super Mario 3-pack, right? First video game system ever was the NES. I'm 36 now, right? Obviously, someone who just started gaming, say, 2 years ago, right, doesn't have the um, sort of, I wouldn't say inborn, but like, the knowledge and experience that I have, because I've literally grown up with video games. They have literally grown up with me, as they have for many people of my generation. Us older millennials who are ever so slowly marching toward the age of 40, and some of us are even over that now, right? Depending on where you fall on the millennial scale. right? So yeah, we're not the same, right? Same way, like LeBron James and myself aren't the same, right? We're both fans of basketball, but obviously, right? He's a much bigger fan. He's a much more talented fan. He's a much more invested fan, right? He's the one who went to make basketball, his professional life and his legacy. I did not. That doesn't mean that I don't have a love of basketball or a knowledge of it. Yes, I do. But obviously, it's not at the same level of his, right? But imagine if someone said, well, you're only a real basketball fan if you actually went on to play professional sports, only if you went on to play pro ball. Well, then you would have a real tiny audience because the majority of people who watch basketball do not play professionally. The majority of people who watch basketball didn't even play at the collegiate level, right? The most people, if they play at all, just play, on occasion when they get a day off, and they go to the local court and they play with their friends, they play with their family or whatever. For the majority of basketball fans, right, it is especially when you compare it to a professional player, right? It's a casual pastime, right? But I still am a big fan of basketball. I've been watching it off and on for most of my life. And in fact, what got me back into it in a major way up until recently was in 2012 when, Jeremy Lin was on the Knicks and the whole Linsanity thing happened, right? Imagine if I had sort of closed myself off and going, well, I'm only gonna watch basketball if a real famous, well-known player is playing. Oh, I'm not gonna watch this third stringer. And look what happened. Not only did he actually uh, uh, sort of save the next season, they got bounced in the playoffs early, but they weren't even making the playoffs until it took over, right? But he got me back into the sport, right? But that was only possible because I had an open mind about it. Because I didn't look and go, he's not good enough, right? He doesn't meet the requirements and standards I have for a basketball player, right? And the same thing is here. This doesn't help anybody. This doesn't help share anything or expose anyone to anything new or old, right? All this does is just shut down communication, and what's worse, shut down a person's mind. This is the type of thing that just takes whatever biases a person has and they just dig in their heels and go, ha, see, this is what anime fans are like. They're elitist jerks. Look at this guy. He's saying, oh, if you're a fan of Dragon Ball, then you're not a real fan. Well, I'm a fan of Dragon Ball, so he doesn't think I'm a fan. Fine, I'm just screw him. That doesn't help. That doesn't help anybody at all. But guess what happens when you have this particular type of viewpoint? No one wins, but everybody loses. Right now, again, I actually do believe in some level of gatekeeping, but not this type where where you basically act as papers, please, right? Where you basically go, okay, you have to prove to me you're a real fan, so meet my standard that you don't even know about. Right? This isn't how you foster a conversation. Let me give you a real life example of how you foster a conversation, you open a person's mind. I remember a few years ago, um, I was leaving work. I had changed into regular clothes because I was going to go to the school's gym. I work in a college, for those who don't know. So it's a small gym setup. So I figured, okay, let me go get a workout in. I was on a gym kick at the time. So the gym shirt that I brought with me was this gray shirt that had a decal on the front of Ryu doing the fireball. Let me get the. Where's my camera? There we go. Ryu doing the fireball motion, right? So I'm in my gym clothes, right? And as I'm walking toward the gym, a security guard that I was kind of friendly with, we knew each other in passing, sees me and he goes, is that what I think it is? I look at the shirt and I'm like, what? He's like, is that a Street Fighter shirt? I'm like, yeah. It's awesome, right? And he's like, wait. You know who that is, right? So I tuck at the shirt and I'm like, logo's upside down from where I am, but I think that's Ryu, right? He's like, you play Street Fighter? I'm like, man, I've been playing Street Fighter since Street Fighter 2. And then guess what? We ended up having this like 10-minute conversation about the history of Street Fighter. And I've had that experience with other people as well, right? I heard someone talking about Metal Gear. I was like, okay, which Metal Gear game are we talking about here? That's how you start a conversation. When you show enthusiasm for something, when you show that you're willing to talk, not by going, uh, you are not good enough. You don't meet my standards, right? That'll certainly gatekeep, but you won't get anything good out of it. What's worse, you'll push the well-meaning people who want conversation and interaction out, and that's not good either. But anyway, that's the video. Please let me know what you think, and I will see you all in the next one. Have a good day or night wherever you are.